good morning, my friends in the Great White North. Alaska was my 50th state. That is happened a few years ago now, but I'd been to 49 states and I'd never been to Alaska. And somebody gave me an invitation to come and speak up there. It was at the conference office, and I'll never forget my experience because I was done speaking for part of my duties there, and we were having like a potluck lunch. Might have even been on a Sabbath afternoon. And I'm getting my food, and I glance out the side window there at the conference office, and I said, "Whoa, there's a moose out there." And the people that lived around there went, "Yeah, so?" I'm like, "No, there's a moose." Oh, it was so glorious. And everybody thought it was so mundane. It was like me saying, "Oh, there's a squirrel out there." I loved it up there. I've never been to Alaska when there wasn't snow all over the ground. The times that I've preached up there have been in the winter months. And I'm wondering, why can't you all have these wonderful meetings in July so I can experience some mosquitoes too? Hey, thank you for inviting me to be a part of your group. Pastors and teachers together, what a partnership that can be and could be. I hope by the end of our sessions together, you'll have some reasons to maybe get together a little bit more and work together as a team. Let's start with a word of prayer, and then we'll get into our first presentation here. Father in heaven, Lord, thank you for the awesome privilege of partnering with you in ministry. And I just pray, Lord, that today as we go through some things together, some new ideas will be sparked in people's minds, and they will maybe have a fresh wind when it comes to their duties as pastors or teachers in the Alaska Conference. Thank you for Alaska, Lord, and thank you for the work that's being done there on your behalf of your kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen. So I was a pastor on a campus that had a K-12 school on it. We shared a parking lot, the church and the school. And at the time, I was quite happy being an associate pastor. Something happened that changed all of that. I was speaking at a week of prayer outside of my conference, and I'd done dozens and dozens of these things, and so I kind of knew what to expect. You know, you get in there and the kids all file in, and somebody leads out in some sort of a song service, and a lot of the time whoever's leading out in the song service will look at the kids and say, "Come on, you guys, sing, you're not singing enough," and trying to encourage more participation. And then I'd get up and preach, and people would say nice things afterwards, and sometimes we'd have a baptism or two, and that would end the week. And you know, like I said, done dozens of these things. Well, I go to this particular school, and I got there about a half an hour early, and somebody on the sidewalk told me where the meetings were going to be held. So I walked in, and as I walked in, I noticed that there were a good-sized group of students standing to the side of the stage where the week of prayer was supposed to take place. And they were banded around in a circle, 10, 12 of them maybe. And they were praying. And I started listening for the prayer. What were they praying about? And they were praying for the week of prayer. They were praying for their fellow students. They were praying for their teachers, for anybody else that might be there. They were praying for me, and they'd never even met me before. And I thought, what? It's pretty impressive. I'd not seen that done before. No adults in the room, just the students. This was an academy, high school students. And then they broke their prayer when a bell rang, and they all went up, and I could see that they were all musicians. They were all strapping on guitars and sitting behind a drum set, and somebody was playing a cello and a violin. It was a fully orchestrated kind of a song service. And all the kids walked in, and the next thing I noticed that really caught my attention was that the teachers did not sit in the back row by themselves, overlooking the students, making sure they were behaving. The teachers sat with the students, all scattered throughout the whole thing like they were friends or something. It was weird. And then the music started playing, and as soon as the music started playing, everybody stood up. And everybody, I don't know how many kids were there, maybe, 200. Everybody was singing. Everybody. I was looking for that one kid that always sits in the back and kind of goes like this during song service. No. Everybody was singing. And I saw, I don't know if this is your thing or not. It doesn't really matter to me. But I saw 15, 20 of the kids lifting their hands while they sang. And I thought, man, they're really worshiping. This is crazy. And I'm not used to that in an Adventist Academy setting, at least not back in the day. And as this was all going on, I looked over and there was this short little lady standing next to me. Everybody's kind of short to me. And I said, what's going on here? And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, who are you? And she goes, oh, I'm the principal of the school. I said, oh, we've talked on the phone. Okay, hi, and introduced myself. I said, what's going on here with all is this an Adventist school? And she laughed and she said, yes, this is an Adventist school. I said, what's the deal here? And she goes, we decided a few years ago that we were going to take Jesus seriously and take him seriously at his word and really make him the center of everything we do here. I said, well, that's kind of cool. She said, we started training these kids how to lead in worship. Back across the street, there was an elementary school. She said, we'd go over there and we started training them so that when they got up into academy, they knew what they were doing. And these kids are passionate about worship. I said, I guess so. So went up and I spoke there and neat experience. The kids were very engaged. Afterward came up and some of them wanted to pray with me. It was neat. And bell rang. They all had to go to class. So I walked over with the principal and opened the doors. And the first thing I saw, there was stairs going up and stairs going down, big wide stairs going up and then 2 stairs going down on either side to get up to the different levels of the school. Big, huge sign at the top of the stairs. And I won't get this word for word, but basically in bold red letters, it said, let it be known that Jesus is the shepherd of this school. He's the teacher of our teachers and he's the master of our students. It's this big declaration of who they were spiritually in that school. And then I noticed as I walked around, that big sign was made into little signs and it was posted on every corner of everywhere that I walked. It was a reminder, a constant reminder of who they were and what they stood for. And I got to tell you, it shook me because my son was a kindergartner back in the day. He's 24 now. He was a kindergartner in the school that was attached to the church that I was a part of. And my school was not like that. Kind of shook me. Had a great experience there. Maybe the best experience I've ever had as a presenter for a week of prayer, and got back home to the school. And then that spring, our principal quit. And the faculty got together and they came to me and they said, we want you to be our principal. Well, I'm going to tell you, I like being a pastor. I really do. And frankly, it's because everybody likes the pastor most of the time. And nobody likes the principal. Because when you're a principal, you can't please anybody. You got the students who don't like the rules you're making and how you enforce them. You got your teachers who you're trying to settle things between them and you're trying to lead a school and they don't like the way you're leading. And then you got the parents who are all talking about you in the parking lot and your school and you have to mediate that. And it's like you're Aaron, you're standing between the living and the dead and you just can't make it work. So when they asked me if I'd be interested, they brought me into a faculty meeting and asked me. I said, no, I would not be interested. Thank you for the invitation. Well, went home that night, was talking with my wife about it. And she said, you always come home from school, from church after I volunteered and I taught at the school. So I was up at the school every day. I was in the school, taught Bible classes up there and really enjoy doing that. And she said, you're up there every day and you come home and you say, boy, if I was the principal, I would. If I was the principal, I would. And it's not something I would ever say to anybody else. I just say to my wife, I don't like spreading things about institutions or people or anything like that. It's just pillow talk between my wife and I. And I said, yeah, but that's just me spouting off. I said, that's, and she said, well, honestly, she said, I teach at that school and I like some of your ideas. Why don't you put your money where your mouth is? Well, coming from my wife, I accepted the job to be the principal. And when I got into my office that summer and started on my new journey, I'll admit to you all right now, I had no clue as to how to be a principal. I've taught in classrooms plenty, but never as a full-time teacher. I was always either a chaplain or a pastor and volunteering, or as a chaplain, it was part of my pay, but it was 2 Bible classes here and there, that kind of a thing. I didn't know how to be a principal. I'd had no training in it. I'd never taken any classes on it. I didn't take any education classes, nothing. So I started looking around and I found one of the things I was looking for. I found a budget. I found something for our fiscal year coming up that had been voted on, and I looked that through and it made sense to me. I met with my treasurer and my finance committee. That was all great. And then the next thing I found was a curriculum plan. They had a pretty decent curriculum plan that spanned from grade to grade, where teachers were communicating, hey, by the time they get to my classroom, I need them to know this, this, and this. And there was a pretty good curriculum plan there. And then I started looking for pastor's heart. I started looking for their soul winning plan. And I looked and I looked through all the files. I couldn't find their soul winning plan. So I brought the board chair in and I said, hey, do you guys, where's your soul winning plan? And he looked at me and he said, what do you mean? I said, well, we're an Adventist school, right? So one of our big missions here is to have people give their life to Jesus and teach them how to lead other people to Jesus. Where's our plan for that? And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. Talked to the teachers that were around during the summer. Hey, we don't know what you're talking about. So I called the conference office and I said, hey, do you guys have any kind of a template for a soul winning plan for your local schools? And the education director at the conference said, I've never heard of that. Huh. So I called the union and the union director, and he says, nope. He says, I don't know what you're talking about. We don't typically do that in schools. Well, that kind of bothered me. So I thought, I'll get together with my chaplain and we didn't have I was at the time, I was the senior pastor of the church and the principal, because they hadn't found anybody to pastor the church yet. So I couldn't talk to the pastor because we didn't have one other than me. But I got a group of people together and I started talking about what would it be like to develop a soul winning plan, a plan for us to win the souls of our kids, and a plan to teach them how to win other people's souls. What would happen if we did that, particularly focusing at the time for me in our junior high and our high school students. And that's where all of this started. Now, the other plan, we're going to talk about that later, that we developed that's really linked to this, was our marketing plan. I looked for a marketing plan and they didn't have one. The conference said they didn't have any kind of a template for a marketing plan. And the union said, nope, don't have that. And it just really shocked me that they didn't have that either. And we're going to talk about that in the next session. But this soul winning plan really took off and it was really interesting. So what I did was I got together with my with my people, the core group that I got together. And in this core group were a couple of local pastors that were affiliated with the school. We had our chaplain, myself, and then some students and a couple of teachers. This was our initial core group. And we got together and we had this blank template that I had created with our chaplain. And I've sent that to your folks, and I think that they probably sent that on to you. But I'm going to tell you, we went through this every year as a junior high and high school, and then some years with our elementary. And I would suggest that it's for anybody. And since I've not been a principal anymore, I did it for 5 years, and then I thought, I think pastoring's easier, so I just went, I'm still a pastor. I also go through this with my churches. and a different one. And I've sent that out. And pastors, you probably have gotten that in your email also, something you can go. But this is kind of what we did. The first thing we wanted to do was we wanted to make sure that our spiritual plan had a mission statement. Who do we want to be? Who do we want our school to be? I feel like if you aim at nothing, you're going to hit it every time. So I said, we're not going to get this perfect. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all thing. Not from school to school, but for sure not from year to year, because your clientele changes. The kids are transient. They come in, they leave, and for each coming school year, you might want to adjust things and tweak things a little bit. But I said we need to have a mission statement, at least a starting point for where we're going to go. And this is what we chose. And if you have it in front of you, you can read along. If not, I'll just read it to you here. Here was our Soul Winning Plan's mission statement. The mission of the chaplain's office at Cascade Christian Academy is to educate the students and staff about the unfailing and life-changing love of our Savior, Jesus Christ. To encourage the students to give their hearts and lives to Him. To enable them in their efforts to practice Christian values of service and brotherly love. To empower them in their desire to be spiritual leaders, to guide them in an active Bible study and prayer life, to encourage their involvement in their local churches, and to provide quality biblical counseling during emotional and spiritual ups and downs. Kind of a long-winded mission statement, but this is the one we came up with that particular year. And this is what we wanted to go off of. And from that, teachers will understand this lingo more than pastors. We came up with what we called action plans. We wanted to make sure that we put into black and white what our goals were for that particular year. Now, to do this, we went through a template to fill out our action plans. And man, when we got done with this after hours and hours and hours and hours of meeting, there were things written down and scratched out and tore up and taped back together, and it took us a while. And for a lot of our conclusions, after we answered a lot of these questions, it's not rocket science, and some of it's like, well, duh, of course you're going to do that. But we found that writing it down and being intentional about these things really helped us develop a plan for the whole year. And this is in cooperation. You'll see that this is in cooperation with not only our teachers and our principal, but with our pastors and some of our church boards. So for our action plans, we labeled this under knowledge. What is the spiritual/soul winning objective of each Bible class? When you're teaching Bible, are you trying to just get through the curriculum? Or are you actually trying to give the student something more than a rote learning, right? Are you trying to teach them to memorize a memory verse? Or are you trying to internalize what that verse actually means and says to a person? So we articulated what is the spiritual and soul winning objective of each Bible class. And I'm going to tell you, it changed how our Bible teachers taught Bible. Instead of, okay, here's the lesson, here's your assignment, I'll grade your papers, it became, what's the purpose of this lesson, and how is it going to draw somebody closer to Jesus? And how are we going to teach that in the curriculum? The next question we answered was, how does the curriculum give each student an opportunity to achieve the goals that we're setting out, right? So is the curriculum actually going to draw somebody closer to Jesus, or is it rote learning? Is it like another science class or a math class? And then I really like this. We tried to incorporate into our curriculum, what are the opportunities in the Bible class curriculum for students to share or demonstrate their faith? Are they just doing assignments and handing them in, or are they getting opportunities to live out what they're learning in class, practicing with each other, and outside of class? What are the opportunities in Bible class curriculum for students to show tangible results in their growing understanding and their walk with God? We give, what were they called? ITBS scores, the Iowa tests. Remember those? I loved those days because it was a little more low key around school, although the students were all stressed out. But it made it so that things were a little bit easier on the teachers sometimes. We measure their aptitudes in English and in math and in history and things like that. Do we have a way to measure whether our students are growing spiritually or not? So we developed in the upper grades a standardized kind of a questionnaire, finding out as the kids were going along in Bible class if they felt they were getting closer and closer to Jesus. Excuse me, I just ate lunch a little bit ago. It's not COVID, I promise. But aren't you glad I'm not there coughing on you? Next question, how will our Bible classes train and give students the opportunity to take part in their local churches? We had 60% non-Adventists that were going to our school. And I don't know how you feel about this, but our goal wasn't to turn them all into Adventists. Our goal was to let our doctrine, as it was taught in the Bible classes from the Bible, speak for itself and let people think and choose for themselves. But all the while, we were trying to encourage them to be active and participants in their local church, whatever the local church was, whether it was Adventist or Methodist or Presbyterian, it didn't matter to us. We wanted them to be active, and we wanted the folks in those churches to know that they were being active because they attended school at Cascade Christian Academy. The next part that we answered was, which part of the Bible do we want our students to commit to memory? And how is that going to plug into our spiritual master plan? Memorizing scripture, especially for our younger students, was important to us. And then the next question we answered, and we didn't just fill these out. We struggled over them. We worked with them, and then we filled out what we thought was best as a consensus, as a group. What opportunities are you going to give your students to teach and share what they learn from the Bible? Important for us at the time to have our older students teaching other people, whether that was in a Bible study group or in the upper grades coming down to the lower grades and sharing some of that information. And then our next part of this survey that we filled out was spiritual leadership and participation. What are the opportunities outside of Bible class on my campus that give the students a chance to attend and participate in spiritual activities? What are we going to plan this year that's going to give them opportunities from our school to practice what they're learning? And then this was really important to us, and we added this a little later. It says, are these activities an opportunity for them to sit and listen to an adult teach? Or are they opportunities for students to lead or be trained for exercising their faith? In other words, traditionally how we do things is we have the kids all sit and an adult talks and gives a spiritual lesson, and then they all say amen and they go back to class. We were much more interested in having the kids up front and the kids leading and us training and mentoring them to get up and do these kinds of things. And then we talked about service opportunities, because we all know that service, the giving of yourself to your community, is a big part of spiritual maturity and spiritual growth. And so we asked the question, what are the spiritual opportunities in service going to look like this year? And we detailed what we were going to do. We did some of the most fun, creative things. I mean, everything as mundane as picking up garbage on the side of the highway, but as creative as having our art class from our junior high. There was this big wall in Wenatchee that was just filled with graffiti and filthy words and everything. We primered the whole thing with the blessing of the city, and we painted this beautiful mountainscape of what it looked like in Wenatchee over this whole thing, and wrote, "With love from Cascade Christian Academy." I was there. This has been years ago now that we did this. I was there last year, and I drove by that street, and all of it is still there. It's just beautiful. How is our school going to reach the community on a regular basis? What are we going to do? And we filled that out, and I've got lots of stories about how we did that. What opportunities are you going to give your students to experience sharing Jesus' love with another culture? older kids, we always had a mission trip, and we always wanted to be a part of that great commission, go ye therefore into all the world and share this gospel. And so we regularly went out of the country with groups of people. And then this was important to us also. How are you planning to let your community know about the events? What's your media exposure? I found that in a little town like Wenatchee, newspapers were desperate for front page material. I can't tell you how many times we were on the front page as a school for some community service that we did, pictures and interviews. It was fantastic. The next part of our survey that we would fill out is called spiritual planning opportunities. What opportunities do you plan to give your students to plan for the spiritual growth of the students and staff on campus? If you just have a group of adults planning everything, you're going to fall short. I think to have young people that are going to be participating in these events, being invited into ownership, to have their ideas as a part of what you're planning is huge. And we always had a council of young people that were helping us plan these things. The next part was interesting. We said, are you giving students on your campus an opportunity to prepare for baptism? And it just says yes or no. And we were supposed to circle yes or no. Well, I can tell you for the couple years before I got there, they had to circle no. But as we started thinking about it, yes. And then we did something a little bold, and you may want to do it, you may not. Do you have dates set in your calendar planned for baptisms? Yes or no? If not, why not? We put dates in our calendar that were planned baptism dates in coordination with our churches, and we would study with our kids, letting them know this is a date. Now, we weren't pressuring anybody. We didn't herd kids into a room and say, okay, we're going to study for baptism. It was always by invitation. But when we set those calendar dates and we were studying with kids, we said, hey, we have baptisms coming up on these dates. There wasn't a date we didn't have somebody baptized during those planned dates. You know the old story, you go up to somebody and say, why weren't you ever baptized? And we know the answer, right? Nobody ever asked me. Well, we made sure everybody was asked. Teacher participation and accountability. Have you given the teachers on your staff an opportunity to share their testimony with your students? How and where is that going to take place? I think it's really, really important for kids to hear why teachers love Jesus, how they gave their heart to Jesus, what their conversion story is, and two, why are they choosing to teach in an Adventist school? They need to hear this. It puts this, these people that I'm with every day, that I look forward to being with every day, that I look up to as a teacher, their journey is important to me, and I want to hear how they came to faith. It can be one of the most influential things you do. Do teachers on your staff have a regular opportunity to worship together and pray together for students and staff on your campus? And how will that take place? I can tell you at CCA, we would meet every morning. It was a required meeting, and it wouldn't be a big deal. We'd sing a song, we'd talk about the day, and we'd stand in a circle and we'd hold hands as a team, and we would pray together. There were 14 or 15 of us on the staff, and we would pray together. And boy, that was some of the most meaningful time. But to go into a school day without praying together and praying over our students and over each other, there were times when some of our staff were going through some hard times and they would be in the middle kneeling down. We'd lay hands on them. Tears would be flowing. It really made for a better spiritual atmosphere in the school. Does your principal measure spiritual integration into taught curriculum when he evaluates his or her teachers? As I did evaluations and education personnel in the conference, I would say you need to add this. One question that I would always ask is, listen, I want to know how you're integrating spiritual elements into your curriculum. That was asked of the math teacher. That was asked of and everybody had a plan to do that. They had to have a plan to do that, because if you looked at me like a deer in headlights when I asked that question, if you weren't doing it, we needed to spruce that part of your curriculum up. And then what does your school have stated or written as spiritual expectations for your staff, your teaching staff? What are they? What are these spiritual expectations? And I tried to verbalize those and have those in our formal documents when I would be filling out the evaluations. We talked about weekend plans. What weekend plans did we have for schools at different churches? And I'll tell you, sometimes those churches were Sabbath-keeping churches, and sometimes they were Sunday. We would take our choir, our band, our different worship groups to different Sunday churches. And every time we performed and did a little something in a Sunday church, guess what happened? Some grandma or grandpa said, "There's a school in this valley that provides this for my student, for my kid, for my grandkid? I need to check that out." And we got tours. I can tell you, we grew from, I think the first year I started there, 153 students and going down every year. And we grew up to 207 students, and it didn't take that long. A lot of non-Adventists, and if that bothers some of you, well then this probably isn't for you. But I view our schools as a great mission opportunity to let people know that Adventists are Christ-believing great people that have doctrine that speak to the glory and the goodness of God. So why not share it with them? And what a prime opportunity. And by the way, people will pay to have their kids exposed to this. What are the spiritual purposes of our Sabbath school? So we talked with all the different churches about Sabbath school programs and how their kids could be a part of the mission of that church. Sabbath afternoon programs we worked with the churches on. There was a cooperation with teachers and pastors on this. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but when Jesus said, "Take up your cross and follow me," crosses aren't easy. And so we did our best to cooperate with our churches and our schools to do things together, our chaplain. We wanted to also make sure that we had an instilled commitment to the church. Regular church attendance was something that we wanted to encourage our students to do. And the only way to do that, let me step back from that. Not the only way to do that. A great way to do that is to make sure when these kids go to church, they see their teachers there. Pastors, I know some of you are frustrated because you got teachers and by the end of the week, they're saying, "Oh, we're so tired. We can't come to church." Teachers, pastors, you got to come together on this. You got to. Teachers, to be a part of a system where the church is hopefully giving a lot of its budget to make sure that your school is a success. You don't have to teach Sabbath school. You don't just go. Fall asleep if you want to during the sermon. You might need the rest. Sermon might be boring, but go. Pastors, that school is gold. And the teachers and the students in there, show up, shake hands, pray over somebody. Let your face be a familiar one. We teach in our curriculum, as we filled out our soul winning plan, commitment to church. What plans do we have to teach the value of regular church attendance? What plans do we have to teach the students how to participate in their local churches? In our Bible classes, we would say, okay, here's how you lead out in children's Sabbath school. Here's some things that you do. Here's how you lead out in this. Here's how you be a student elder. And we taught them how to pray in front. And it was a part of our curriculum. How are you planning to train your students to participate in church government? We, again, different student leaders on church board and elders boards and things like that, and taught them about the mission of the church. And then how do you plan to incorporate key elements of church in a relevant way for your students? And then finally, spiritual mileposts. What are the special milepost events? These are all little things that we've been talking about, but there are big events that we're going to plan, like weeks of prayers and things like that. What are our big milestone events going to be? And we would write all those down, plan them out, and put them on a calendar. Now, we filled all of this out, And what we came up with basically was our action plans. And you will have those action plans from that particular year in front of you. But we talked about quality Bible classes and the curriculum. We talked about our weekly youth group where the churches and the school would get together and we would have all kinds. It was a diverse ecumenical group. I'm telling you, we had all kinds, and we would share and learn and play and eat together. But our Wednesday nights, we had a ton of kids there, and this is pre-mask, of course. But it was a big deal because it was there, and they wanted to come and be a part of it. We had a mission trip to Fiji. Our weekly chapels were pretty much student-led. We had our week of prayers that we planned. Our community services days were all planned. Student week of prayer, huge to have students sharing their testimony. Outreach, evangelistic series. Our students, our high school students would put on one during the summer, believe it or not, one during the summer and one during the school year, an evangelistic series. I will never forget watching the parents of a Presbyterian girl sit in the very front row at the Leavenworth Seventh-day Adventist Church as their Presbyterian-raised young lady gave a presentation on Daniel 8:14 and the cleansing of the sanctuary. Afterward, oh, we're so proud of you. They were hugging their daughter. Thank you for that beautiful message. Isn't that great? It happened. Of course, we go to Bible conferences. We had our chaplains council where we had students from representing all the different grades come in and plan spiritual things on campus and pray over their campus. We would have our baptismal classes every year in participation with pastors and teachers and things like that. And then teacher participation and accountability. I would make sure as the principal and the spiritual leader of the school to sit down during evaluations and when I would go into classrooms and make sure that teachers were keeping that spiritual mind in their curriculum. So this is a stepping stone. What happens is we're not doing anything. And what I tell every church that I pastor and what I tell every school that I pastor, this is a big bite to chew. So don't take a big bite. Take a little one. Start somewhere, but have a soul-winning plan for your school, for your church. When I got to this church, I'm at the Sunnyside Seventh-day Adventist Church in Portland, Oregon, where we protest and eat at food carts. When I got here, the church looked at me and said, "What plans do you have for evangelism?" And I said, "None." They said, "What?" I said, "None." "What plans do you have for evangelism?" "What do you want to do?" And they said, "Well, we don't want to do traditional evangelism. We don't think that works anymore." I said, "Okay, fine. I like traditional evangelism, but if you don't want to do it, fine. What do you want to do? How are you going to grow your church? Because if you don't do anything, you're going to die on the vine." And so they had to really think and grapple. And we went through the church template for this that I provided with them. And we grappled and we came up with a plan for our church on how to grow. The same thing will happen in a school. If you come up with something and stick to it, something is going to be better than nothing. And you're going to be able to go forward. If I was ever a principal again, and I've never ruled that out actually, but if I was ever a principal again, there's no way I would go into a church into a school year without having a soul-winning plan developed. Now, I've presented this in different conferences and different unions at the NAD a couple of times. And what will happen is principals will run home and they'll get the template out and they'll fill it out all on their own. And here's our plans. Worst thing you can do. Collaboration is hard work because different opinions and everything. It's hard work, but it's the only way to do this. Pastors, teachers together, add some students in there, add some principals in there, add maybe a conference officer in there, add some church board and school board members. People that know how to work in a committee. Don't have obstructionists in there or people that want to just yammer on and on and on and on like some people I know. But make sure it's a collaboration. And don't do it in one day. Take a weekend and go away somewhere, or meet every Tuesday for a couple of months, starting in the spring before you hit summer, so you can put these plans into action. Do these things. Your church or your school will be way better off. You will grow spiritually. You'll teach kids how to accept Jesus into their own lives, and you'll teach them how to share that Jesus with people in their lives, and you will grow because of it in your church and in your school. Healthy church, healthy school. Healthy school, healthy church. They're always linked. I have a couple of schools in my district here. I have chosen the high school for myself. Some of my other staff members are at the other schools. But I'm at that school every day that it's open. Now, things are a little different right now, but during a normal school year, I'm there and I walk in and I talk with the principal. I walk the hallways. I say hi to the kids. It's really, really important that they see that a pastor in their district is interested in their well-being. Teachers find it important that I come in and I say, hey, how you doing? Doing okay. Let me pray over you. I'm a member of course, boards and things like that. And I volunteered to teach Bible there. Now, they don't need me this year because they're staffed well. But I volunteered to do that because that's something that I'm okay at, and it's something that I enjoy. We also have the nursing faculty from Walla Walla University here, and the nursing school just right next door, right on our campus, really. And I go over there in between church service. I do a come as you are church where they all come down to the lobby and eat cream cheese on bagels and cereal. Well, I give them, we do a little song service and I give them a little sermon and we pray together, and then I run back for my second service. Just do something more. Plan it ahead of time, and you don't have to plan on the run. And that's why I wanted to present for you this time of considering developing a spiritual master plan for your church or your school. I would love to take questions now, and I'll be appearing now live on your Zoom feed. And feel free to ask me anything you'd like to be more specific about things. It seems like 41 minutes ago only is 10 minutes ago. For me, it feels like I didn't have enough time to present everything. But in our first presentation, I wanted you to consider developing a master plan, a soul-winning plan for your school and for your church. We'll see you live here in a moment.